Hi, Ben Johnson here to record some of the activities that we completed on our first night of class. Let's go ahead and download those practice files. Remember, to get to our class website, you can just simply go to bit.ly/psdexcel, and that will take you to the Excel files that we use, and you'll want to download the Part 1 drills here, the first link, and just go ahead and save those into whatever folder you'd like, and then use the triangle down here on the bottom of your browser to open up that file in Excel. By the way, most of these things will work very similar in a Google spreadsheet. Let me go ahead and enable editing here on the top. And this first spreadsheet is simply just to get you familiarized with the program. So, for example, I have instructions type how in cell D7. So I'm already in D7. I can verify that with the cell address here. So I'll just type the word in how. Now in Excel, you need to make sure that you either hit Tab or Enter after you type something. And I've put some conditional formatting in to make that turn green if it's correct. Now in F9, I ask for you to type the word U in. I can verify that I'm in F9 up here in the cell address. And the purpose of this spreadsheet is just to simply get used to the way a spreadsheet uses cell addresses. It turns out to be a critical part of Excel. If you don't understand this concept, it's going to be difficult to use a program. So I'll type R and E8, and then finally a question mark in cell G10. So again, just a simple exercise to get you acquainted with the way addresses are typed in Excel. Notice they're always the letter followed by the number, usually in all uppercase. It's not required, but that's typically what happens. If you have a hard time finding a cell where they intersect, you can always come up here to the top and simply type in something like E8, press enter, and it will automatically take you to that cell address. Alright, so I've got down here, type your answer, which cell contains Pooter, so we can click on that. It's F22, so if I come here and type in F22, it's going to turn green because I got it correct. Again, this is conditional formatting that I programmed into the spreadsheet. Not every spreadsheet will turn green when you type the right answer. Alright, school is in E23, so again, I'll click here, type in E23. It will still turn green even though I used a lowercase e. It will still work, although most people will recommend uppercase. And then finally G24. Alright, so that's our first exercise. Hopefully you fully understand that. As you use Excel, the cell address becomes a critical piece, especially when you start writing formulas and functions, and so I just wanted to get that out of the way right off the bat. Alright, in Excel you also have ranges, because you could imagine if you had a group of numbers like this that you wanted to add, doing M1 plus M2 plus M3 plus M4 would get pretty tedious. So the creators of Excel came up with this concept of a range. And so the way you specify a range is you just start with the uppermost cell. And so in this case it would be D2. And normally you would just then pick the bottom cell, which would be D6. But in a case like this, I can actually do 2 through H6. Not typically how you'll see a range in Excel, but in this particular example, that's what I've got here. So you would do D6 colon H6, and that designates that range. And I must have D2, sorry. So I'll do D2 through H6, and that'll turn green. And then oranges, again, I can do A7 through B10, A7 through B10, and that's going to turn green. And so again, if I was wanting to add up all of these numbers, that's how I would type that into a formula or function. And so I can do the same thing here. I could say equals sum, and then I would just use my mouse and have that range go in, and you can see it's M1 through M24. And that's just much more efficient than typing those cell addresses individually one at a time. So that's called a range, another critical element to understand in Excel. Alright, the next exercise is just renaming worksheets. By the way, when you make a workbook in Excel, so we're looking at a workbook called Drills 2000, it's a container for all these worksheets. You can rename these worksheets simply by right-clicking and renaming them. So I'll call that one test and I'll hit enter. You can drag and drop them into the correct order. So if they were months of the year or something, you could drag and drop them. You can change the color by going here to tab color. And then when you click off of them, that color becomes really obvious. I can insert more worksheets just by hitting this plus sign here. And again, I could rename that by just simply right-clicking. In Excel, when in doubt, right-click. And now I have these two worksheets. So working with worksheets themselves, really easy to manage. You can delete a worksheet, but there is no undo. So if you delete a worksheet, make sure that you truly want to get rid of that worksheet, because there's no way to undo a deleted worksheet. So let's see, I think we did all of the exercises here. Resizing columns. In Excel, a lot of times you'll get a spreadsheet like this where the columns are not wide enough to hold the text. And in fact, sometimes you'll see pound signs. And when you see those pound signs, that means there's a number there. Excel changes the number into pound signs because it doesn't want to mislead people with a partial number. And so whenever you see these pound signs, that's just an incomplete number. Now you can one at a time resize these by going in between, say, A and B and double clicking when you get this two-headed arrow, which works fine, except it's not very efficient if you had a lot of columns to resize. So in that case, you can click on this gray rectangle between A and 1. That's where this green triangle is. That selects the entire spreadsheet. Now anything I do is applied to the entire spreadsheet. So if I go between C and D now, not only is it going to resize C and D, but it will resize all of the columns on my entire spreadsheet so the contents fit. So I just quickly expanded these to fit all of the contents. And so that's a very fast way to resize columns, is just hit the special rectangle here where A and 1 intersect, pick any two columns, double click. Okay, we can use that same technique on rows. So if the rows aren't fitting, I can go between 4 and 5, double click. It will expand to fill. These are text wrap is turned on, and that's why it's wrapping down. Now again, if I want to use the trick that you saw previously, I can hit this rectangle where A and 1 intersect, and then I can pick any two rows, double click, and it will expand those rows to automatically fit the contents. So that's a nice trick. All right, inserting columns and rows. Frequently you'll need to add columns or rows because you forgot a heading or something, and so that's easy to do. You just simply right click on the column. It's going to insert to the left of that column, so I could just hit insert, and now I have a column for the number 2. If I wanted to do more than one row at a time, I can simply highlight as many columns as I need added, right click and insert, and in this case it added two blank columns. I can do the same thing with rows. I can right click, insert. It's going to insert the blank row above. If I need more than one row, I can highlight several rows, right click, insert, and in this case I'm going to end up with 2 blank rows. So that's a nice trick to know. Alright, Autofill is a wonderful tool that can save you a lot of time. Whenever Excel recognizes a pattern, such as Monday, the days of the week here, I can click on it with my big hollow cursor, mouse over the green box here, and you'll see that big hollow cursor turns into a little solid plus sign. Once I see that, I can click and drag, and it will automatically fill in the days of the week. I've got an if statement set up to say great here. If you're wondering how that worked, we'll see that in another tutorial. I can do the same with the days of the month. So again, you single click with the hollow cursor, you get the little solid plus, and you can click and drag down, or a nice trick is just to double click on this little plus sign and it will automatically fill to the bottom. Now if I've got numbers that repeat, I can use my big hollow cursor, highlight those 2 numbers, and then use my autofill, and it will repeat those numbers. If I have, say, teams or different labels that I want to repeat, like red, white, and blue, again, I can use the hollow cursor, highlight those, mouse over it with my solid plus, double click, and it's going to autofill. Sometimes you'll need to establish with more than one number to create the pattern. So in this case I've got 1, 2, 3, and so I'll highlight those and autofill down. Okay, a few other little autofill tricks that I'll show you is that sometimes you'll want maybe to repeat the numbers 1, 2, 3, but if I autofill down it's just going to keep counting. So if I put my mouse and get the solid little plus sign and hold down my control key, you'll see it makes another little plus sign, so I end up with two little plus signs, and now if I autofill down it will actually repeat that sequence. So that I used the control key was the trick there. Dates. If I type in today's date, but I'd like to fill that down, but I don't want to include weekends, there is a neat little trick here that I can use. It's called fill series. So I'll just type in the first date, highlight some blank cells below, and I can go to fill series. And one of the things here I can do is just weekdays, and then I can hit OK. So this is often useful if you're wanting to make a school calendar, but you don't want to include weekends. And so you can see it skipped from 3, 4, and then all the way to 3, 7. So that's a handy trick. So that fill series is a neat trick. I'll just mention briefly, but I won't show you this. If you want to make your own custom lists, you can do that, and you would just type them in the File, Options, and you go to Advanced, and I believe down towards the bottom is Edit Custom Lists, and you can type your own. Maybe it's the staff at your school or something like that, so you can type your own custom list here, and then whenever you need to autofill in their names, maybe for a duty roster or something like that, you can just autofill their names just like you did the days of the week. So kind of a neat trick. All right, formatting. In Excel you can format just like you can in Word or PowerPoint, and so it's just a matter of taking some time and coloring things in the way that you want them to look. Typically I see really boring spreadsheets, and if it's an important thing and that you're going to present in a meeting or something, I think it's worthwhile to spend a few minutes making it look pretty. There is this format table feature, which is nice, particularly if you want to alternate colors on every other row. I'll just warn you that if you use this format as a table menu, it actually kind of alters the structure of your spreadsheet, and so for that reason sometimes I don't use this because it really changes the underlying structure of the spreadsheet. Some of the formulas and functions don't work like you would expect after you use this. So just a caveat with this format as table, although it is a very nice tool. If you're wondering how I got the slashes in here, you would just go here to your border tool, and if you pick more borders, it will actually give you an opportunity to put a slash in, and that's how I accomplished that. So I just you just choose a line. In this case I right-clicked, and then so that's how you would put a slash through if you're wondering how I did that. You can change the different fills, and sometimes if you're printing on a black and white printer, using a hatch or something is more useful than using colors. So just play around with that. Just to show you how that table feature works, I can just highlight this table and then use this format as a table. And you can see that it applies that table formatting very quickly and efficiently for me. So I like that, but now the underlying structure of this table has changed, and some of my formulas and functions won't work like I'm expecting. So just know that caveat. Number format, it's usually quicker to use the menu toolbars. For instance, if I want to change these % rather than me type that each time, it's quicker just to type it and hit the % symbol. And I can do that same technique here. If you want to increase or decrease the decimals, you can just use these little buttons up here on the toolbar to accomplish that. Maybe you're rounding grades up and you want students to see out to the tens, hundreds, thousands place. You can increase those. Just like with the percentage, it's faster to click on the $ here to do your money formatting, and then same thing with dates. If you change that to a different type of a date, like a long date, it's just going to be much faster to use the toolbar than to manually type into the days of the week. All right, wrap and merge. If you want a title like this to be centered over, well, let's see. Let's start with the wrap. If you have text that's too long and you were going to print this and it would take up 10 sheets of paper, you can just highlight it instead and just simply come up here to wrap text. Now that's going to easily fit on one sheet of paper. Titles, if you highlight the cells above and then you come here to the merge and center button, it basically changes those cells into one big cell. And the caveat with that is you won't be able to use those cells and formulas and things. And so for that reason, I'm not a huge fan of the merge and center, because it prevents you then from manipulating the spreadsheet down the road and frequently causes problems. So I try to avoid the merge and center unless I just have a real straightforward table like this one that I'm not going to need to do any thing very advanced with. All right, selecting. You can use your mouse and highlight things and change those all to a certain color quickly. But if you're wanting to highlight things that aren't touching, you just want to hold down the control key on your keyboard, and that allows you to select things that are not touching each other, and that's helpful when it comes to formatting. Okay, and I can do the same thing with my rows here. If I hold down the control key on my keyboard, I can alternate my rows and change the colors and things like that. So that's a useful tip to know. As you start to lose some of your worksheets here, you can just use the screen arrow and advanced. Cutting and pasting, a lot of ways to do it. You can use your hotkeys like Control X, Control V. Again, Control X, Control V. If you want to copy things, you can do Control C, Control V. To turn off the marching ants, you just hit Escape on your keyboard. Again, Control C, Control V. And turn off the marching ants with Escape. I do like using the hotkeys. Some programs you have to use the hotkeys, so those are good ones to memorize. You can drag and drop simply by clicking and then getting a four-headed arrow and just drag and drop. But it is quick and easy to make a mistake using this technique, so just be careful. And then there's always the old trusty right-click, copy, right-click, paste. So I don't care what your favorite way is, just get used to copying and pasting, cutting and pasting. If you use Excel enough, you'll inevitably have to copy and paste frequently. One notable thing here is if I copy this, you'll see on the paste, one of my options is this 1, 2, 3. And I just want to mention that briefly right now, because if you're copying a result of a formula and you just use this plain old paste, it's actually going to paste that formula. And sometimes you don't want the formula, you just want the result of the formula. So this 1, 2, 3 will just copy the result of that particular formula. So I use this frequently, the 1, 2, 3. All right, let's skip the spell check and I'll go to movies. And I'll just scroll to the left and scroll to the top. This is the first spreadsheet that you've seen in the class that looks like a real spreadsheet. This is what a spreadsheet should look like. This is a decent spreadsheet. There's one big glaring mistake. It's got first and last name together here, which you should avoid doing because I can't sort this alphabetically by last name. So I'll show you how to fix that here in a minute. But the purpose of this spreadsheet is that I want to show you how to sort and filter, because that becomes very important. So one thing that you want to avoid is if you highlight just a single column, it may only sort that column. So try not to highlight a column, instead use the headings. So I'll click on my category here and then I'll come up here to my sort A to Z. And you can see I've sorted by category A to Z. Sometimes it will actually take these headings and sort them into the results of the table. And so if that ever happens, you can always hit undo, just the undo button here, or Control Z. And you can always go back to custom sort. And when you use this custom sort, you can check this box, my data has headers. Sometimes Excel doesn't guess right, particularly if you're using like a CSV file or something that you've downloaded. It won't guess that you have headers, and it will want to sort those headers in with the data set. So in that case, I always just check that box. Okay. I can sort rating. Maybe I want to get the best movies, so I can come here and I can do Z to A. And so I can find the best movies in my database here with the Z to A. Or maybe I want to find my oldest movies, so I would do A to Z. If I want to find the cheapest movies, A to Z. Sometimes you'll want to sort two different headings, and so let me show you how to do that. So maybe I want my first categories and then by rating. So if I go here to my sort A to Z, I can do a custom sort, and I can do rating, or in this case I'm going to do category first, A to Z, and then I can add another level, and then I can do rating, and this time I want to do Z to A. So you'll see it pulls all of these different types together, but then within that particular category, for instance drama, you can see that my 5-star dramas are up here at the top. So frequently you'll want to sort by more than one level, and so you do that using a custom sort. Okay, now in addition to sorting, which is awesome, you can also do filtering, and that's very useful, especially if you have a large data set. And so maybe I only want to see my comedies here. So in that case, I'll click on category, I'll go to the funnel, and I'll turn on the filter. And you'll see that it adds these triangles to the top of my headings. And at that point, now I can click on these, unselect all by checking that box, and then I can just pick the particular one that I'm looking for. In this case, drama. Now you need to pay attention to these blue numbers here. That's Excel telling you that there are some records hidden, and so if you ever receive a spreadsheet from someone else and you see these blue numbers here, that should be a sign that you're not looking at the complete data set, or if you see a funnel here. So if I'm just wanting to look at my 5-star dramas, I can now unselect those and then select my 5-star dramas. And so I went from a pretty lengthy table down to a table with simply just 5 movies that I can find quickly. If you were trying to gather this off of a hard copy of paper, it would have taken you a long time to identify these if they weren't sorted in any particular order. So filtering is incredibly powerful. Definitely know how to sort and filter in Excel. Now I can clear this one at a time here by using these funnels and selecting all, but the fastest way to clear those is just to come back to this menu and just hit clear, or whoops, hit escape here. Sorry about that. Just come up here to your funnel and hit clear. I was using the wrong clear, so use the clear under the filter, and that will put those all back into order. If you'd like to practice those techniques on this car spreadsheet, you're welcome to do that too. Again, sorting alphabetically A to Z, by model. Hopefully you understand that, and again, to do more than one at a time, you'll just go to a custom sort, and I could sort by first make, and then I could add another level model. And now I've got all sorted by make and then model within that. I can turn the filtering on using the funnel, and you'll see those triangles again, and maybe I'm just looking for my Hondas and maybe just Civic. So now I'm looking at those few records here. Okay, and so that again is filtering. To clear that, I just go to my funnel and I just clear that filtering. So if you'd like to, go ahead and go through the exercises I just demonstrated. Make sure that you understand how to do those, and that will give you a sort of a basic overview of how Excel works. And then in this next session, we start to hit formulas and functions. But if you're wondering what a well-designed spreadsheet looks like, it's going to look a little bit like this one, where you've got your headings on the top, records down below. The only problem with this one, and I'll just show you how to fix it right now, is that the first and last name is together. And so we can fix that by separating them. And so what you have to figure out is what character separates first and last, and it's a space. So then we can figure out which name has the most spaces. So we have Michael J. Fox. It's got 2 spaces. If you look through the spreadsheet, you'll find that there are no names with more than 2 spaces. The reason that's important is that we need to insert 2 blank columns here by highlighting 2 columns and then just inserting. Now I can come here to this column, highlight it, and go to Data, Text to Columns, pick Delimited because we're delimited with a space, check space. If it's not checked, it'll show you a preview, then you can just do Next, and then finally Finish. Tells you that there may be data here. Do you want to replace it? Because we added the 2 blank columns, we can hit OK. And now it's just a matter of spending a few minutes and fixing some of the mistakes. So I would just move Fox here, Downey Jr. here, and then Derek DeLint here. So I would just fix that, and then finally I would just delete this that particular column, and so now I've got a pretty well designed spreadsheet here. Alright, so that's our first day at Excel. Again, try out these drills, make sure you understand how to do them all. The really important things that you should know from this are how to sort and filter are huge. Of course, knowing the cell address and range is a very important concept. Resizing your columns and rows. Autofilling is a really important concept to understand. Inserting blank columns and rows is very helpful. And those are really the highlights of this first day of Excel.